2006, the Internet Engineering Task Force started thinking about internationalized email. And at the time, I didn't see what the big deal was. I mean, I speak English, my family speaks English, Internet mail speaks English. Why bother? But then after a while, I realized, imagine a different Internet, one where the Internet was invented in a world where people wrote stuff in, say, Greek, and all email was in Greek. Now, back in the 1990s, we came up with something called MIME that makes it possible to do the subject lines in whatever language you want and the contents of the message in whatever language you want. But see, still, your email address still would have to be in Greek, you know. And if I'm talking to a family member or talking, you know, my sister, I say, like, how do you spell your name in Greek? Well, an M, that's that. And after a while, it's clear we can make this work for nerds, but without making the whole message, the whole email address in your native language, the Internet really isn't going. It's not going to work for people who aren't technical, you know. And the IETF has spent now over a decade working on internationalized email. We've tried different approaches, and we've come up with one that we think works pretty well. And that's EAI. That's what I'm helping ICANN bring to the world through the UASG. And EAI is not a bunch of big changes to Internet email, but what's really important is that it has to be consistent changes. I mean, at the IETF, we really worry about what we call interoperability, which means everybody has to implement the same thing the same way. I mean, for example, in familiar domain names, there's dots in the middle. There's not slashes or something else. And maybe slashes or something else would have been better, but we decided on dots. And the same way with EAI mail, we've made a bunch of decisions. I think they're pretty good, but my goal is to help everybody implement their EAI mail completely consistently, so that whether you're using one of the American providers like Gmail or Hotmail, or whether you're using a provider in South Asia or a provider in China, the way they implement EAI mail will all work together. You can send, just like you can send English language mail now from any internet system on the world to any other internet system, we'll be able to send EAI mail the same way from any system in the world to any other system in the world. I mean, the work is a little bit subtle, and it's been frustrating, and it's been hard, but it's definitely worth it, because as we bring the internet to the next billion people, I want those billion people to be able to write their own names in their own languages, and that's what EAI is about.
The Universal Acceptance Steering Group helps with the business case for email address internationalization. You might think you don't need internationalization of your email addresses because you think your email address is working fine, but what you're missing potentially is an addressable market for you. And by making that business case, the Universal Acceptance Steering Group improves the internet for everybody.
Universal Acceptance Steering Group is a group of experts from ICANN and non-ICANN community where a concept of treating domain name equally is being promoted. This is a very interesting concept and very important concept. Let me get back to the history. When internet started, it started with 3 TLD extensions, which was .com, .net, .org. But the internet changed it. Internet changed in 2010 when CCTLDs came into picture. Those who do not know CCTLDs, which means country code top level domain, where all the countries in the world were given their own extension TLDs, like India has .in and US has .us. Not only that, the internet changed later when the TLDs were started for long characters, which mean .accountant, .info, .tech, and like that many more. What happened because of that? Because of this, internet broke. Because all the code, which was there for almost 15-20 years, before 2010, it was assumed that there can be only 3 characters after the dot, which was the TLD. And then we had 2 characters, and then we had more than 2 characters, which could go up to 63 characters. And this is where it was required to change the softwares, change the applications. Otherwise, if you send an email or you browse through the internet, you are not able to reach to the site at a destination where it is required. Now the further complication. The IDNs, internationalized domain names, which means now a user can have a domain name in his own script, which means a TLD in a script of the country's specific language, where in India it is .bharat, in UAE it is .emirat, in China it is .china, and the Thai it is .thai, in their own script, which means now the domain names are in different languages. This further broke the system where the entire application and the software and websites were designed assuming that you are going to get input on ASCII characters, because the internet was designed that way first. And now we have a domain name in their own script, in scripts other than the ASCII, which contains UTF-8 characters. And this is where the UASG plays an important role to propagate the practice where all the domain names, whether it is a short domain name, short TLD, whether it is a long TLD, or whether it is an IDN, all the domain names must be treated equally without any discrimination. We have a far way to go, and we are proceeding further. Another challenge which came out is the email address internationalization, which means if you have a linguistic domain, which means you can have a domain with your own script, you need to have an email address on that domain. And this created another challenge where the systems were not ready to have an email address or a mailbox in that domain. In 2014, Google announced the phase 1, we call it, as a allowance practice, where Gmail is allowed to send an email to an EAI address and receive an email from an EAI address. Just to clarify what is EAI, an EAI is an email address on your linguistic domain names, that is IDN. On Gmail, you can do that. Recently, in January 2018, we heard a big news from Microsoft, where Microsoft also announced that all the Office 365 is now capable to receive and send an email from an EAI address. Who provides EAI mailboxes? There are many companies in the world, such as Action Plus in India, Coremail in China, TrueWave in Thailand, and many more, who can provide you a solution which can offer you a mailbox on your IDN domain. Is it a good opportunity? It's a large opportunity. On UASG.tech website, there's a report which says that it's a $10 billion opportunity on this space itself. I encourage everyone, registrars, registries, to go back, look at your systems, make them EAI ready. Otherwise, you are missing a new targeted segment and a market which you have never tapped before. Thank you very much.
I am thrilled to be here in Puerto Rico today with the UASG, and I'm thrilled to announce support for email address internationalization in Outlook.com and Office 365 Exchange Online. Our support for email address internationalization means that people can have mailbox names that are meaningful to them, that they can send email to and receive email from other people who use their own language and their own writing scripts. Support for email address internationalization brings us one step further along the Microsoft mission to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. That's why I'm excited about UASG and ICANN 61 here in Puerto Rico.